Hi everyone, I'm Moon Rain, and today I'll be doing a VR to Rumer Haven's wonderful new tag, the Seance Circle Spread. Rumer created a really great creative and atmospheric concept. It'll be 10 different prompts inspired by the world of seances and spirit communication. Each deck will connect to a different type of energy and question. I really love the idea. I wanted to take it just a step further by just changing where which decks goes where in regards to the process. So each deck will represent like a phase in the process where we'll have like the energy that opens up the session, the voice that comes through, the shadow and the light, and so on and so forth. So in this video, I'll just go through that one deck at a time. And also another challenge that I wanted to bring in for me is just to work with decks that I don't necessarily work with. So I'm definitely going to take a little short break and go through each guidebook for each card that comes up, and then give you a full reading based on the interpretations. So let's start the circle. All right, so the very first prompt is a round deck. This will be our crystal ball. So for the very first one I picked was the Wild Unknowns Pocket Archetypes by Kim Krantz, and I'll show you what that looks like. I believe it's mixed media. I do have another Archetypes deck. It's the Caroline Mist, but I have worked with that one, so wanted to specifically work with decks that I don't use on a regular basis. I do like the Caroline Mist. I think it's really great in the sense that it offers both like shadow and light attributes on the cards. The guidebook I don't think is doesn't provide too much more detail than the cards already do, and she does have a book that covers the archetypes. However, I feel like the cards themselves are pretty much exactly what she's saying in the book, so you don't really need to buy the book. So let's start with the crystal ball here. We're going to ask the deck what energy or archetypal current will open here this seance and hold it together. All right. Now the very next one is the Invocation. I wanted to do this particular prompt next. For her prompt, it says a spirit guide deck for ancestors or deities. Instead of using the Angels and Ancestors deck by Kyle Gray, I wanted to use a deck that I don't use at all. And that would be the Spirit Keepers Tarot deck by Benabel Wen. I've been pretty good, and I actually started reading the book, or should I say tome, and it's been really, really great. Hopefully we can get a good message here. I really wanted to use this deck for the prompt as a deck that feels truly channeled or inspired, because I really do feel like this is very unique in its way that Benabel Wen added different types of modalities and practices onto the cards, and you can see that delineated here on the edges. However, I feel that the particular question that I have for this part of the spread just better suited this particular deck, because the question here is who or what steps forward within this energy to speak with us, and because of the different types of people throughout her deck, I think would be great to use for this particular question. Okay, so the question again is who or what steps forward with this energy to speak with us. So here we have the energy that is encompassing. This will be who or what steps forward. Now the next deck would be the prompt Materialization, a haunting deck. And for that, I picked Anna Cortez's Doors of some Limpeth. And I'll show you what that looks like here. Okay. So the question here for materialization is, how does this presence first makes itself known? Now we're going to move on to actually channeling the message. So the next prompt when it comes to channeling, the prompt was a deck that feels truly channeled or inspired. And for that, I picked The Beloved Dead by Carrie Paris and Tina Hart. Give you a quick rundown of this deck here. And we're going to remove the chair here so we can perhaps we should put it underneath. The card that represents the person who we invoked. And hear how the presence first makes itself known. And here we're going to do the messages. And from what I've noticed, like a lot of the keywords, these are just mostly keywords here and acts of love. So I thought it would be best to get a message this way, as opposed to using this as the spirit guides or angels or messengers, since we don't necessarily have a very specific archetype for each and every card. Or so let's see what we got. And because we want a specific message, I thought it would be best if I could get 2 or 3 cards out of here to give us that message, to create like a cohesive sentence here. So here we're going to channel that message. Gonna knock on it 3 times. Now we'll move on to the candle. So the candle will show us the shadow work. The prompt was a deck for shadow work. And for that, I wanted to pick the Oracle of Nightmares. I think it's a great deck to show us specifically any fears, any repeating patterns that we do, and explain to us exactly what's going on. And as any candle, kind of illuminate that part of us. So here we're going to ask what hidden truth or fear is being brought into light, and create that light on that shadow. All right. And now we're going to bring in a personal item. So this is a deck for objects such as charms or Lenormand. And I thought I would bring in the Memento Mori Lenormand and Oracle deck by Claire Goodchild. I don't use this very often, but it's quite terse in the way that it speaks. But that's, I think, just the nature of the deck in regards to the fact that it does have Lenormand objects, and the other objects along with it. It's very linear in the way that it speaks, quite terse. Okay. So here we're going to ask, where does this energy show up in a very tangible, day-to-day type of situation here? And now we're going to move on to the next prompt, a deck that is like a photo deck. For that, I wanted to pick the Cosmic Crossroads Oracle. It's not necessarily just the Cosmic Crossroads. This is more of a deck. It's an amalgamation of tarot and oracle. It doesn't have all of the tarot cards in it. It's just a mix of just some of my favorite cards from the Cosmic Seeds tarot deck mixed with the oracle, as you can see here. Sorry, I've used this just recently, so it's a little bit mixed up here, but I thought they work well together. So for this particular question for the photo deck, I'm going to ask what sign already exists that kind of confirm the presence or pattern that we're seeing here. Kind of like a photo, it's showing you something that existed that you might have missed or not seen until you actually saw the photo, right? So that's the whole reason for that question. Now we're going to move on to the next prompt, which is the Trickster deck. So what better deck for Trickster energy than the Beetlejuice Tarot deck and guide? Beetlejuice can be seen somewhat like an archetype like Loki, where he pushes boundaries, illuminates on things that you wouldn't necessarily want to be exposed, but in a way that not necessarily like ridiculing, but just more of like emphasizes it to the point that you have to address it, right? So here for the Trickster energy, the question will be, how might the illusion or mischief distort what's being revealed here? And if I haven't given you a little sneak peek of this deck, here it goes. So I'm just gonna give it a good shuffle 3 times. And now we're going to move on to the FOMO deck or illusion deck. So for the FOMO or illusion deck, I am picking Tarocchi Italiani by Valentina De Luca. For this particular question here, this is our collective hallucination, kind of like a social spell. So here we're going to ask what collective belief or expectation clouds my perception of this situation. I have to give this a very good shuffle since it has not been used. And I'm a little scared about shuffling this because it's quite big. And I have very large hands, so. We have to do it this way. Okay. And last but not least, a closing or cleansing type of deck. Not sure whether to pick the Green Witch's Oracle deck or the, what is the name of this deck? I forgot what it was called. Animal Apothecary, perhaps, is what this one's called. I think I'm going to go ahead and do the Green Witch's Oracle deck. And this is an uplifting or healing deck. That is our 10th prompt. For this, I'm just going to ask, how do I close the circle and integrate the lesson with peace? As our closing card. All right, so that is it. Now we're going to flip everything and we're going to take a little break. I'm going to interpret this, reference the guidebooks, because some of these decks, as I mentioned before, I've never used before, so I definitely need to reference back. Okay, so let's see here the central energy, right? The energy or archetypal current that opens the seance here. The Starborn. And now we're going to move on who is coming forward and talking to us. and we placed them on the spirit throne here. Okay, so we have the Scarlet Shield, Sanctum of the Valiant. Now we're going to move on to the Materialization, how this presence appears to us. And we got Fortress of Desire. The channeling or the message is next here. We have an active love that says self-preservation, sovereignty or sovereign, and then snake. That's very interesting. Okay, so we have these three messages. We'll make a cohesive message from those three. And then the candle kind of showing us or illuminating that shadow that we have here with the Oracle of Nightmares. We have disappointment. Interesting. Okay. Oh, I did not realize I pulled two. Oh no, this is the Memento Mori. Okay, so the next is the personal item. And we have the Sith here. I do love the fact that it's taking away the disappointment, because the action here of the Sith is on the left-hand side. Next, we have the Spirit Photography, which is going to give us what sign already exists that confirms this presence or pattern or issue that we have that we are not necessarily seeing. We have a paradox. And now the Trickster test, how my illusion or some sort of mischief distorts what's being revealed here. And we have the King of Cups. And then here, what collective belief or expectation clouds this whole situation. And here we have Fante de Espada. So this is the Page of Swords. All right. And then we won't close this without our last card. How do I close the circle and integrate the lesson with peace? And here we have B, which it's about community, cooperation, and sweetness. All right, so just give me a moment and I will get back to you, and we're going to start working on the message behind this spread. All right, so let's start with the interpretation. The very first card that we picked out was the central theme. So it represents like our overall theme for our seance. We got the Starborn, and according to the guidebook, this is representing our greater life purpose, our mythic destiny. So she encourages us to look at our birth chart and figure that out. The shadow side aspect of this card is about longing or misalignment to our life purpose here. So forgetting what we're meant to do in this lifetime. So for the seance here, it shows us that the focus is on finding direction and realigning to our life purpose. Now, the next card that we got was the Scarlet Shield. And this is the Sanctum of the Valiant. The card that this is supposed to represent or align with is the Queen of Swords. So here he teaches us how to fight for what matters, reminds us about the rebellion and leadership that are necessary for growth. So he's more about thinking for yourself, making decisions with conviction, leading with confidence, and rebelling when necessary. So that's a really interesting energy that's coming through here. Now with materialization, so how does the spirit appear in our lives, right? So here we have the Three of Hearts, and this tells us that it's showing through passion, longing, and the search for purpose. So this energy attracts us through strong emotion or desire, as this this castle here is talked about just tempting knights and people that are passing by, which can motivate us but can also trap us if not managed well. So this is more about passion, longing, temptation, and the search for purpose here. Now, when it comes to the messages, the Beloved Oracle deck, we got the Act of Love, Self-Preservation, Sovereignty, and Snake. So here we're talking about protecting your boundaries from others, staying calm, staying in control, and turning desire and temptation into clarity. Again, we're getting that temptation and manipulation here. So, and it's not twice that we get that sense of manipulation. We're also getting it a third time here with the King of Cups, and we'll go into that in just a little bit, because according to the guidebook, it does talk about manipulation and temptation there too. Now, so just to summarize here with the message, because that's really important, is real strength isn't about control. It's about composure. What tempts us or drains you, you can teach can teach you about discipline and about balance. Now the candle, right? Candle is going to help us illuminate our shadow. And we use the Oracle of Nightmares here. So the hidden truth here is being exposed as self-disappointment. The broken dolls here reflect like maybe a fear of not living up to standards or expectations. So this is showing us kind of like our inner frustration that may not be visible to others. So spirit wants you to acknowledge it rather than just hide it. And here we have the personal item, we have the scythe, and the question here was, where does it appear in our life, right? So it could appear in areas that are cluttered, repetitive tasks, relationships that are outlived their purpose, whatever they are. So just like a daily environment or routine, right, that feels stagnant, unproductive. And this is kind of like a way of just cutting through that, especially it's interesting to see it right below the starborn here, where that misalignment of purpose as well as that sense of disappointment. So here we're seeing all of that, and it's a good thing that it's coming through here and like through this whole area here, right? That misalignment of purpose, people that that may be manipulating you, and that sense of like self-disappointment here. Now we're going to move on to the spirit photography. This is the evidence here, right? So the card paradox shows us the evidence of the pattern. You may be experiencing endings and beginnings, wanting change but resisting that change. This contradiction though is it's kind of like a proof that transformation is already happening, that you're in between the old and the new, right? The old and the beginning, or ending and beginning. So, and I would say the old would be the scythe, while the new here would be going into that life purpose of the starborn. Now, in regards to the trickster energy here, the King of Cups upright talks about emotional maturity, right? However, in the guidebook, it talks about, in the negative aspect or the reverse, shows emotional distortion. So feelings that of like caring, compassion may actually be about control, guilt, or dependency. This is a warning, right, of needing to be emotionally objective, notice manipulation, even subtle forms of it. So it's very interesting to see warning signs about manipulation. You see it here with the Three of Hearts, with the snake. Is also in the guidebook in regards to the beloved oracle, and again the negative aspect of the King of Cups as manipulation. We see it 3 times as a warning. We're seeing the scythe cutting that sense of self-disappointment, but hopefully also the manipulation that we might get. We're seeing a sense of having that sense of sovereignty, speaking up, forming our warrior aspect, because this guy here trains us to be strong. Now, in regards to the collective hallucination, here we have the social spell, right? What are others doing that's distorting our viewpoint? Here we have the Page of Swords, which represents curiosity, communication, but in this aspect, because we're seeing this in a negative light, we're seeing gossip and overthinking. So the message here is like, pause, think for yourself, stop reacting to collective noise. And closing all of this, we have the bee. The bee represents communication, cooperation, productivity, community. So to close the circle, here we're focusing on healthy communication, teamwork, constructive relationships, right? In order to create something beautiful. So using your energy for things that build value instead of draining you. So that's how you integrate this whole lesson here. So condensed summary, because it's a lot, right? So here we're talking about the whole central theme about this is realigning with your life direction, the spirit keepers. What came through to us is the Scarlet Shield, the act with confidence and independence, needing to create our own sense of independence here. And then here we have the Three of Hearts, which is talking about passion drives you, but it could also trap you as a warning. So the manifestation here is that urge or need to do something, right? And then here we have the message from the beloved dead, and it's talking about protecting your energy, staying composed, and watching for anything that might seem alluring but might trap you, here with the snake. And then here we have the shadow or the disappointment, about stopping yourself from being judging yourself so harshly. And then where is cutting away anything in our life that is stagnant and not helping us move forward, clearing that energy. And then the proof is the contradictions in our life. It shows that you are trying and you're moving forward and you're transitioning into something more positive. The trickster energy, of course, is beware of emotional manipulation. And then we have that social spell, the environment that we're under, and that could be causing us not to see so clearly. Here we have the Page of Swords, so don't get lost in other people's opinion. And closing is rebuilding or connecting and cooperating and forming that sense of community. So that is the summary for this particular spread. I truly enjoyed doing this. It was so much fun, and it really gave me a good excuse to crack open those guidebooks and use these decks that I don't ordinarily use. So I'm super excited continuing using these decks from now on. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will definitely leave the original videos and other videos that I've watched recently, so I'll put that as well, that also did this tarot spread. So thank you guys for watching, and hopefully I'll see you guys in the next one.